Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our e-commerce helping your business in uncertain times and into the future webinar presented by the Florida SBDC at UCF. My name is Justin Anderson. I'm an associate consultant here at the FSBDC, and I'll be co-hosting the webinar today along with presenters, marketing manager and consultant Jairo Batista, and international trade specialist and consultant Noreen Elatar. Now, before we get started, I'd like to give a brief overview about the SBDC. The SBDC, or Small Business Development Center at UCF, is an economic development organization that exists to help small businesses grow and succeed, and we serve an 8-county region. We're state designated as Florida's principal provider of business assistance and are partially funded by the US SBA, State of Florida, and other local support organizations and community partners. The SBDC has been around for 45 years, and we have offices throughout Florida, ranging from our headquarters in Pensacola all the way to the Keys, with each region being hosted by a university or state college. In Central Florida, we're hosted by UCF. Our service offerings include no-cost one-on-one consulting in all different areas of business, and normally in-person, but now virtual seminars on various business topics and strategies. Now, before I pass it on to Jairo and Noreen, I just want to cover a few additional housekeeping rules. Your mics are muted by default, but if you have any questions, please feel free to use the questions chat box feature in the GoToWebinar panel at any time, and we'll address them towards the end of the presentation. And please don't refrain from using the raise hand feature. Again, just use the questions chat box. Copies of today's presentation can be found under the handouts tab in the GoToWebinar panel. Evaluation surveys for this webinar will be emailed to you shortly after the session. So please check your inbox at the conclusion and submit your feedback as soon as you can so we could improve our future offerings. I'd like to thank you all again for joining us today. And without further ado, I'm going to pass it on to Noreen.
Thank you, Justin. Good morning, everyone. We really appreciate you joining us this morning. So as a starting point, I thought it would be fun to do a little bit of e-commerce trivia. So there's going to be some questions that are going to pop up on your screen. So answer them to the best of your ability, and then we'll kind of see how everyone does. Are the questions coming up?
Yeah, they're answering them now.
Oh, okay, great.
So we've got about half of the responses now, so I'll give another minute or so. About 80%. A few more seconds. All right, I'm gonna close it now. Can you see the results, Noreen?
I can't, no, so you're gonna have to talk me through them.
All right, so the question was, what item was the first to sell on eBay? We had about 36% saying Pez dispenser, 29% saying Star Wars figurine, 14% saying a laser pointer, and 21% as Michael Jackson's Bad album.
Interesting. So I would have guessed Star Wars figurine, but actually the answer is a laser pointer, which is probably the most boring thing on there. So that was the first thing to sell on eBay.
All right. Number 2 is launched. About 50% responded. 10 more seconds. All right. So the question was, what online retailer claimed the first in Facebook sale? 7% went to Victoria's Secret, 57% went to 1-800-Flowers, 29% to Amazon, and 7% to The Gap.
That's absolutely right. 1-800-Flowers was the first online retailer to claim the first in Facebook sale. And I think that makes sense because I think prior to online, there was a lot of telephone orders for flowers. It's kind of a less involved product, so made sense. Good job. And we have one more question.
Yep, last one for now. The poll is out. Got 30 more seconds. Ten more seconds. All right. So last question was, which online retailer was first to offer free shipping? And results were 7% to ASOS, 64% to Amazon, 21% to Zappos, and 7% to Best Buy.
So Amazon is a good guess, but it's actually Zappos was the first to offer free return shipping. So that's definitely an advantage for customers that are wary of having to pay shipping costs if something is not going to work out for them. They know if they can return for free, then it's less of a barrier to purchase. And I think Zappos probably became quite famous for that. That's kind of what catapulted them to the top as far as the shoe retailers online, at least at first. Now they've expanded into other things, but yeah, so it was actually Zappos, not Amazon. So thank you everyone for participating. That hopefully that was a little bit of fun facts for you. So as a starting point, we As a starting point, we should define e-commerce. So e-commerce, also known as electronic commerce or internet commerce, refers to the buying and selling of goods or services using the internet and the transfer of money and data to execute these transactions. It's often referred to the sale of physical products online, but it can also describe any kind of commercial transaction that's facilitated through the internet. E-commerce business models of all types are thriving these days, really now more than ever. Sales from online stores are expected to increase 78% this year, and globally, business to consumer e-commerce sales are expected to reach $4.5 trillion by next year. So what will we be discussing today? We'll start with choosing an e-commerce business model that makes sense for your product, selling your product, calculating costs, how to attract customers, choosing the right platform, and finally expanding your market overseas through e-commerce. So first up is e-commerce business models. So deciding who you want to sell to is a first step for e-commerce. And there are two main types of e-commerce businesses. B2B, which is business to business, refers to the model where one business sells to another business, just as it says. There are both advantages and disadvantages to selling to other businesses versus selling to the end consumer. The pros of selling to other businesses are that order sizes and repeat orders are typically larger and more frequent. However, because there are fewer businesses than consumers to sell to, sales cycles are typically longer and the price is a heavy contributor to purchase decisions. B2C, or business to consumer, means you're selling directly to the end consumer that will be using the product. And this is the most common type of business model and what most people think about when they think about building their e-commerce business. But I also want to note that there are a few other business models that are less common, and that includes B2G, which is business to government, and C2C, which is consumer to consumer. And that's what you would think about when you think of Craigslist or eBay. So the next step is deciding what type of product you want to sell. Physical goods are what most people think about when they think of an online store, and it does make up the majority of online e-commerce businesses. So although physical goods are the most popular product type to sell, it also presents some challenges, and that includes inventory, storage, shipping, breakage, and insurance. Digital goods are also a popular type of product to sell, and they have the advantage of not needing inventory space or inventory storage, physical delivery like its physical counterparts. Digital goods can be anything from music, videos, ebooks, images, software, etc. And the biggest advantage to selling digital products is piracy. Disadvantage to selling is piracy. However, because the digital product can be resold thousands of times over, their margins are considered the best, and it comes without the headache associated with shipping and inventory management. And the third, slightly less common product type to sell online are services. Online services can range from consulting, web design and development, content writing, editing, and a whole host of other service options. And because of COVID-19, actually, a lot more services are coming online than typically did in the past. And selling services through an online store can be a great way to build credibility and gain exposure, but it does typically come with the limitation of scalability because services are typically delivered by a person, and therefore it is limited to that person's time. So after you've determined who you're selling to and what you're selling, the next step is determining which e-commerce model you will adopt. So in these next few slides, we're going to go over the various e-commerce models, which include drop shipping, reselling, white labeling, manufacturing, and handcrafting. So a drop shipper is an online store that does not hold any inventory. The drop shipper simply moves the goods from the manufacturer or the third party to the consumer. And the model looks a little bit something like this. So a customer orders the product through your website and they pay retail. Your website receives the order and then forwards the order to the supplier and pays the supplier wholesale. Then the supplier sends the product directly to the customer and you pocket the profit. So really the key to making money with drop shipping is making a profit on the price difference between what you charge and what your drop shipping partners charge you. So dropshipping has various benefits and drawbacks. Since there is very little starting capital, there's a very low barrier to entry. Someone can get started with their website for as low as $30, and it's really unlikely you're going to need any outside capital. And since you don't store or ship products, you don't have to manage inventory, and there are no order minimums, so you can offer a large selection. Dropshipping also offers location independence. What that means is you can do dropshipping from anywhere in the world. Anywhere that you are located, dropshipping is an option. And it is scalable, meaning you can accept more orders without having to hire more staff. And in general, suppliers don't require payment until the product is sold. So unlike most retail, there is a positive cash flow for your business. You pay the supplier after the buyer pays you. There are a couple of drawbacks as well. So although low barrier to entry was a benefit, it can also be considered a drawback because this business model is subject to copycats. So the downside is you're going to be facing a lot of competition with other stores selling those exact same products. So a really important thing to do is make sure you do a thorough competitive analysis before entering a drop shipping model. This model also offers lower margins than other e-commerce models. So you could typically expect around 20% margins. It does have some complex shipping. If you work with just one supplier, this won't be an issue, but it is very likely you're going to be working with a few different suppliers, and so you'll have to figure out how to mitigate shipping costs from multiple suppliers. And then you have to decide, do you want to pass that cost on to your customer, thus making the product cost higher, or would you like to absorb that cost yourself? High shipping costs are one of the biggest reasons customers leave checkout when shopping online. So as a drop shipper, you may have to cover some or all of the shipping costs. An example, so if you have an order with 4 different products from 4 different suppliers, that will cost you 4 times as much as an order from one supplier. So something to keep in mind is that your customer won't know that their products are coming from 4 different suppliers. They assume it's all coming from one place. So again, figuring out how to handle shipping is definitely a drawback to drop shipping. And then there is a lack of control with drop shipping. You get blamed for mistakes. With a good supplier, you can expect maybe 1 to 2% of order issues, but with a bad supplier, that can be over 2%, and it can really harm your reputation as a business. So if your sellers are slow, if your quality is lower than the customer expected, or if there are any sort of problems with the order, it's really on your head, and this can translate to poor online reviews, so it's something to keep in mind as well. One of the most well-known drop shippers is Wayfair. Currently, they have warehouses for some of their products, but Wayfair started way back in 2012 as a drop shipping business, and over time, they've adapted their e-commerce model. However, the company still works with drop shipping suppliers, at least 10,000 of them, who ship 95% of their products. And a drop shipping tip for success is to find a supplier that can supply as much of your inventory as possible, so you don't have to worry about hiding multiple costs. The next e-commerce model is reselling. Reselling is the archetype of e-commerce and retail. A reseller buys products from wholesalers, distributors, or manufacturers at a lower cost, and then they sell them for more than they bought them for. With reselling, not only do you have to have your own website where you accept the orders, but you actually have to store the products. So a big benefit to reselling is that you're selling other people's products and you don't have to manufacture them yourself. So covering the benefits and drawbacks, if you're already familiar with the niche, then you know which products are in demand and will sell well. So there's really no need to spend a lot of money on research and development. An example of this, so let's say you're an expert on birds, then you know what type of feeders are the best, food, binoculars, etc. So you'd buy them from the suppliers and sell them on your website. Reselling also offers you control over shipping costs and procedures since you're storing the products and fulfilling the orders. So larger margins also offer you more flexibility. You usually buy at 50% of manufacturer's suggested retail price. And reselling allows for low-cost experiments. So instead of ordering a large amount of products, you can order just a case and experiment with the new products and see which ones sell the best and see which may allow you to expand into other areas. And then you do have some flexibility when it comes to overhead. Your fulfillment can be outsourced. For example, you can use a third-party logistics company, but this will eat away at your margins and it does keep your business remote. Or you can keep your fulfillment in-house, but this results in higher margins per sale, but it does take time and energy to manage. And a drawback to reselling is that it doesn't offer you a branding opportunity. Other stores can sell the exact same products, and that can be a threat to your business. So you have to think about ways to mitigate this, and namely that's by adding value to your products. And reselling is capital intensive, so although the goal is to buy low and sell high, you also need to offer hundreds, if not thousands of SKUs. So you can expect to spend around $10,000 to $20,000 or more to start a reseller business. Lodge Goods sells a variety of well-made goods from craftsmen and manufacturers around America. They're an example of a reseller. They refer to themselves as a men's club of online goods, and almost every piece is made in America. So that's what they take pride on. That's their niche market. And so by carrying all these other brands, they're able to offer a wide selection of products and brands. Tips for reselling success include constantly experimenting to see which products and niches are the most profitable. And because there is no branding, add value to your business by hiring expert staff. You can offer a bigger selection, or you can bundle services such as warranties or free classes with your products. The next, we're going to talk about white labeling or private labeling. White labeling occupies the space between reselling and product development or manufacturing. So at one end of the spectrum, private labelers take generic products and sell them on, say, Amazon without modification, simply adding a brand name to the listing title. And at the other end of the spectrum, a private labeler will customize the product and packaging to such an extent that it bears really little resemblance to the original generic item. And as a retail strategy, private labeling is not new. Supermarkets have been doing this for years. They often take generic products and literally just add their own label and make it their own. It's really to provide a range of mid-price but highly profitable products to sell alongside those household brand names that they also stock that we're familiar with. Benefits, you can create your own branding, so you can focus on what you want to focus on. For example, if you can choose to focus on price, quality, or being environmentally friendly. Building trust, so your private label will be the basis of building a trusting relationship with your customers, giving them what they need and more so they can keep coming back to you. It also allows you to build your fan base. Something about your brand should appeal to people. Increased control, so by selling your own brand, you have full control over the packaging, labeling, manufacturing, and ultimately the quality of your products. You'll be the one setting all the rules for your brand and your business, and so you can build your brand as you see fit. Less worry. So if you've done your research right, you'll be working with a product that you know what to expect already in terms of quality, in terms of the manufacturer, and even the target customer. So it won't be such a shot in the dark when you come to launch your product. And then more profits. So instead of selling a name brand product, you're selling your brand. You're allowing you to bypass the middlemen and the vendors. And this leads to greatly increased margins and allows you also full control over pricing. And then last benefit is reduced competition. So if you choose to sell an Amazon private label product in a smaller niche category, you'll avoid having to compete with larger companies for sales. You have the opportunity to become the go-to product in your niche. And then as far as drawbacks, since white labeling forces you to create your own brand, you must first build it. No one knows who you are and they won't buy it until they know you. So it takes longer than reselling to build up that brand. And then since white labeling requires a manufacturer to add your logo to the product, it is more capital intensive as a model. You might have to order hundreds or even thousands of units at once. So it does make it harder to experiment with different products. And then once you order it, if you can't sell it, you're stuck with it. You have to figure out what to do with those goods. Tips for success. So since you have to create your own brand, you should add value to it. Some ways to do so is to create your own instructions and packaging to provide better product information. You can create your own marketing materials like photos, videos, or text to sell the product more effectively. And you can bundle your products with accessories that bear the same branding. An example, Floyd's Barbershop has locations around the country. They offer haircuts, obviously, and at the end of the haircut, they will offer gel to a customer, and they use their own private label brand of hair gel. So even though hair gel is found everywhere and a customer can easily pick it up at any convenience store or grocery store, they can just pick it up right on the spot there, and they know what it's going to look like in their hair, and they can just pick it up right on the spot. The next model we're going to talk about is manufacturing, and that is creating your own products at scale using staff in a factory. It's one of the most defensible models, meaning it's very hard to copy. So discussing the benefits and drawbacks, there's really unlimited potential with manufacturing. You can literally create anything you want, and you have full creative control. You have control over things like size, shape, packaging. And if you have something very specific in mind, manufacturing really may be your only option. Otherwise, you're just going to have to settle on what's available already in the market. Another benefit is that you have access to intellectual property, your copyrights, trademarks, and patents, and you can use those to protect your brand. As far as drawbacks, manufacturing starts with a prototype. And what that means is getting your idea from paper or a sketch into an actual product. A lot of people do get stuck in this step because it does take a lot of time and money to produce the prototype. Some industries do have companies, though, that would help you with the prototype. And oftentimes when working with a manufacturer, there is a good chance you're going to be working with someone overseas because the costs are dramatically lower overseas. So one of the challenges you may face is a language barrier. And a solution to this is just to hire a native English speaker as a product manager. It's worth the investment to make sure you get the product exactly how you want it. An example is Enchroma. They make glasses for people with color blindness in order to see colors they otherwise wouldn't see. So there was a strong interest in this product in the beginning, but the consumers were really skeptical to spend $350 on a product without knowing if it worked or not. So to combat this, the company got creative and they started sending out multicolored balloons with the product and encouraged consumers to do unboxing videos on their social media. And that's really a great example of this company using social proof to strengthen their brand. Since branding often takes months, start building a following before your product comes out. And social media is a great tool to do this with. The last model we'll talk about is handcrafting, which is making a product yourself by hand. It normally starts with a hobby and a passion for the technique and not necessarily a financial need. And you may think that today handmade products are kind of out of style, but it's actually not the case at all. It's there's still a niche market for them, very popular. There are lots of people selling successfully handmade products online. One of the most popular ways to do this is through Etsy. Etsy's addressable market is between 140 billion and 170 billion by 2023 estimates. And they currently hold about 4% of the total market share and expected to grow to 5% this year. And then Amazon recently opened their own version for handcrafting businesses called Handmade at Amazon. The benefits, it's very easy to start. You can start right away if you have the skills and the tools ready to go. And it's a great way to see if demand exists for your product, and it could be a stepping stone for manufacturing. So instead of going full-fledged into manufacturing right away, maybe start with handcrafting to test the market. You'll need a smaller customer base since handmade products are more expensive than mass-produced products. So again, it's that niche market. And then you have a direct connection to the consumer, which allows you to offer specific or customized products, something that manufacturing doesn't allow or may not allow. And then as far as drawbacks, handcrafting is very time intensive. It could take you 20 hours or more to make just one product. So you'll have to consider the price to time ratio. Make sure you price your product so that you're actually paying yourself for your time. And don't worry as much about it being too expensive because there will always be an upscale market that's willing to pay for custom products. It is harder to scale, like I said, because it's based on unique skill. You can't just hire anybody. So you'll have to find a profitable niche, and you can always scale up to manufacturing if it becomes successful. An example of this is think of it during the holidays. Scaling is quite challenging during the holidays. There may be an increase in demand that you'll have to consider, and will you be able to fulfill this demand? One handcrafting example is JL Lawson & Company. They make products such as coins, rings, spin tops, and games, all made by hand in their studio in Joshua Tree, California. It's a family business. They've been running for 3 generations, so that means that every piece they produce has a lot of pride in it. And then a more timely example for us is that so many businesses emerged on Etsy over the last year making hand-making cloth masks to sell to adults and children during this pandemic. Next, we're going to discuss how do you want to compete. So deciding how to compete is an important decision, and it can significantly shape the future of your business and dictate key business decisions. So there are several common ways which you can compete in a crowded marketplace. Price is typically not the best option for smaller retailers for the very reason that everyone bigger than you typically has better margins and can always go lower than you. So this is also in the bigger picture leads to price wars. It just eats away at everybody's margins. An example of this is Walmart. They've always been known for their discount strategy, and they're big enough to make the strategy work for them very well. So they purchase products in massive quantities, and they're able to get better pricing and pass that along to customers. Competing on quality comes down to having a superior or better made product. This can be a great way to compete, and there are signs that the market as a whole is shifting more towards longer lasting, well-made products. An example would be dbrand. They sell vinyl skins for smartphones, laptops, and game consoles. Recognizing that the current market lacked high quality skins cut with laser precision, dbrand took it upon themselves to create create them and quickly soar to being the dominant player in the skins game. Competing on selection is a great option for carving out your own space in the marketplace, but it also comes with the risk of increased inventory and storage of that inventory if you're utilizing any other method than drop shipping. Amazon is without a doubt the leader in e-commerce when it comes to selection. However, just because massive companies have large selections doesn't mean you can compete on this. It simply means you'll have to compete on the largest selection in a very niche category. One of the best ways to differentiate yourself in the market is to provide additional value to your customers that compels them to purchase from you. We discussed several ways to add value in previous slides, but content in the form of really great product descriptions, learning centers, installation guides, these are all really great examples of ways to provide additional value to your customers. An example of this is Right Channel Radios. They drop ship their CB radios and accessories, which means their markets are quite slim. And this can make it difficult to compete effectively against other competitors with better margins. So in order to compensate for this gap, Right Channel Radios offers a ton of extra value in the form of an education center and video reviews on most of their products. And the last way is service. So competing on service can be very difficult as a new small business, but it can be a winning strategy. Considering that word of mouth marketing is the most powerful form of marketing, it really makes sense to compete and deliver an incredible customer experience that really gets people talking. Zappos, as we talked about earlier in this presentation, they are known for their customer service with free shipping both ways, a 365-day return policy, and a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week customer service center. They also, as a fun fact, they hold the record for having the longest customer service call. It lasted 10 hours. And in case you're wondering, they were not discussing shoes that whole time. They were actually, the customer was discussing just living in Las Vegas with the person on the call because Las Vegas is the headquarters for Zappos. So I imagine they gained a customer for life during that call. And now I'll turn it over to Jairo, who will discuss selling your products.
Okay, good morning. Okay, so selling your products. Go ahead and switch slides, Noreen. All right, so when selling your products, I generally have two ways of doing that. First is having your own online store, and second is utilizing a marketplace. Next slide. If you're going with your own online store route, there are different options available for you to do that. There's Shopify, WooCommerce if you have WordPress, Magento, BigCommerce, Squarespace, Wix. Also, there are entrants by GoDaddy as well that can help you sell your products online. Next slide. The benefit to having your own online store is you own the relationship with the customer, meaning you're able to communicate with the customers as long as you like, whenever you like. You can upsell them, and you can also upsell them different products that would benefit them as well. You can also realize more profits. With a lot of marketplaces, there's going to be a lot of administration fees. With online stores, you don't get those administration fees as you would with a marketplace. You have full control, meaning you have, in terms of branding, you can design your website however you wish. You can use whatever colors, fonts, logos, whatever you want to create a unique customer experience. You can enact sales promotions for as long as you like, whenever you like, and you have access to important customer data that can help you market your products in the future. And lastly, you can also avoid a lot of the rules that marketplaces tend to have. Next slide. With marketplaces, there are generally four popular ones. There's Alibaba, which is more of a B2B marketplace, Amazon, of course, eBay, and then Etsy. Next. The benefits to a marketplace is you have access to a wider audience. Just think about Amazon alone. They attract millions and millions of shoppers a day just by their brand recognition. You can also have the ability to outsource the customer service and the fulfillment of orders, and marketplaces can help you with tax collection. And I'll talk about sales tax later on in this presentation. Next slide. As of last year, social media took a big step up in the world of e-commerce. Prior to the pandemic, Facebook and Instagram was seen as a Craigslist style type of e-commerce platform, meaning that individuals and businesses would upload their products online, but the transactions were either taken care of on offsite, another website, or in person. Now today, Facebook has evolved. Facebook and Instagram has evolved to allow people to buy within the Facebook platform. Next slide. Let's look at an example for Dress Lily. Dress Lily is a company that sells women's clothing and accessories. If you look at the shop button on the left side, that'll take people to Dress Lily's catalog. Once you get to the catalog, they can click on the link, add it to their shopping cart, and the person can complete their transaction within Facebook. Next slide. This is Instagram. So these are a few screenshots from Instagram. You can click, same thing, you can click on the tagged images, add to your shopping cart, and a customer can complete the transaction within Instagram, within the Instagram platform. This is a big game changer for a lot of small businesses, as it allows them to have multiple sales channels for their customers. So they can have their own website, they can have and Facebook and Instagram to all sell. Also, a big component of Facebook and Instagram is that they partnered with a lot of leading e-commerce platforms such as Shopify and BigCommerce. So if you have a Shopify website, you can integrate it with your Facebook page, and you can update your Facebook, your Shopify catalog, and automatically update your Facebook and Instagram pages as well. Next slide. Now, everything comes with a cost. So let's talk about some of the costs associated with e-commerce. Next slide. So first, we'll look at some of the online platforms for your own online store. WooCommerce, Shopify, and BigCommerce. WooCommerce, like I said earlier, is only for WordPress users, and then Shopify and BigCommerce. So both Shopify and BigCommerce are considered all-in-one platforms. So they're just not e-commerce; they're your complete website suite. For the initial price for all of them, our initial setup price for all of them is free. The monthly price for WooCommerce is free, and then Shopify and BigCommerce have different tiered programs. Additionally, BigCommerce and also Shopify offer enterprise platforms for the larger companies who want to take advantage of those features. The hosting for WooCommerce is $5 to $100 depending on the size of your catalog, and the hosting for Shopify and BigCommerce are included. Themes, which means the design of your platform or design of your website, can range from anywhere from between $3 to $300 depending on the platform. Plugins, which focuses more on the features and different tools that a website may have, varies between anywhere from free to $89 per plugin depending on the platform. And then also, and some plugins have recurring charges. Transaction costs for WooCommerce and Shopify are pretty standard. The 2.9% plus 30 cents for each transaction is pretty standard for a lot of different e-commerce platforms. BigCommerce has partnerships with a lot of the leading payment gateways where you can avoid those transaction fees. For those that don't know, a payment gateway is pretty much a third-party credit card processor, such as a PayPal. In terms of free trials, WooCommerce is free to use, so there's no free trial with that. However, Shopify and BigCommerce offers about 2 weeks of a free trial. Next slide. So now let's look at some common marketplace fees. So Etsy has prided themselves as being as simple and transparent when it comes to the fees that they charge. They charge typically 4 different fees: listing fees, transaction fees, payment processing fees, and advertising fees. Next slide. eBay is very similar to Etsy, which is pretty simple. They have an insertion fee, which is like a listing fee, a final value fee, which is like a selling fee, listing upgrades, and payment processing. I highly recommend checking out the links provided on each of these last 2 slides so you can get a better idea of how each of these fees work, so you don't fall victim to being overcharged. Next slide. Amazon is historically charges the most fees because they do so much. They have advertising fees, administrative fees, fulfillment costs, referral fees, refund administration fees, selling fees, and storage fees. I highly recommend checking out the Amazon calculator so you can get a better idea of how much Amazon would charge you to do business with them. Next slide. Facebook. Facebook charges a flat 40 cents fee for orders that are up to $8, and then a 5% selling fee on orders above $8. So one thing I do, again, I recommend is checking out each platform's fee structure, because things always change. Facebook's e-commerce platform, or this version, their version of e-commerce has pretty much is less than a year old, so things may change. So I highly recommend checking out their links as well. Next slide. Now we can't finish the conversation on cost without talking about sales tax. So before we get into that, I just want to ask a quick trivia question. Next slide. Justin, go ahead and upload that slide. So how many states do not charge state and local taxes? Okay. Justin, let me know when you're ready.
Will do.
All right. Okay. How many responses do we have?
About 67%. So maybe another 20 seconds or so.
Give me another 5 seconds. Okay.
All right, I'm gonna close it now.
All right, thanks. Okay, so the responses are here. So the answer is actually two. There are actually 2 states that do not charge state and local sales taxes, and those would be New Hampshire and Oregon. There's another 3 states that don't charge state taxes, but they do charge local taxes, and those would be Alaska, Delaware, and Montana. So keep that in mind if you have customers in those locations. And I'll talk and we'll go a little bit further in sales taxes. So next slide. All right, so sales tax. So there's basically two rules when it comes to sales tax. First is your business have a sales tax nexus in that same state as your customer, and the next is your product taxable in that state. A sales tax nexus is just a fancy way of saying, is there a strong connection with that customer, with that state? Next slide. Each state has its own rules on how to establish sales tax nexus within those states, but these are a few common ways to establish a nexus. First is location. A location nexus could be established if you have an office, a warehouse, store, or any other physical presence in that state. Personnel can include employees, contractors, salespersons, installers that are doing business in that state on your behalf. Affiliates could be someone who advertises your products in exchange for a cut of the profits, also creates a nexus. If you have a drop shipping relationship with someone in that state, if in some states, if you sell a product at a trade show within that state, that would be enough for a nexus. And the most common is an economic nexus, which is if you exceed a state mandated dollar amount of sales in the state, or you make a certain state mandated number of transactions in that state. Next slide. When it comes to taxable products, not all products are taxable in every state. For example, in the state of Pennsylvania, general apparel and clothing is not taxable. In the state of Illinois, grocery items are only taxed at 1% as opposed to a 6.25% other normal state tax. Next slide. When it comes to sales tax, there are certain steps you have to take. You can't just collect sales tax, charge and collect sales tax as you wish. First, you have to register for a sales tax permit with the state by going to the state's Department of Revenue website. After that, then you can start collecting sales tax. When you collect sales tax, there is a caveat though. Each state can be origin-based or destination-based tax sales sourcing. Meaning, if a state is origin-based, that means you would charge whatever sales tax rate that's located in your business's location. If you're destination-based, then you would charge the sales tax of where the customer is located. So, quick example. So, let's say you are a business in Orlando, Florida, and you have a customer in Miami. Right? If the state of Florida was an origin-based sales tax, you would charge 6.5%. That would be state of Florida 6% and Orange County tax rate of 0.5% because your business is located in Orange County. Now, if the state of Florida was a destination-based sales tax, you would charge 7%. State tax of 6% Florida, and then the additional 1% for the customer being in the Miami-Dade County. After that, after you collect it, then you report it. How often you report depends on the sales tax permit. It'll give you information as far as who and when to remit. When to remit can mean it can be monthly, it could be bi-monthly, it could be quarterly, it could be biannually. It just depends on each state and the permit. Next slide. I highly recommend contacting your CPA to help you out with your sales tax, with your sales e-commerce sales tax, and also check out these website links here. The first two is coming from the Florida Department of Revenue on how to register for a sales tax permit, and also information as what's taxable in the state of Florida. And the following three is other additional information. There are, if you do get, sales tax can be a frustrating thing, but keep in mind there are different platforms that can help you sort out your e-commerce sales tax. There's Avalara, which is listed here, AVALRA. There's also Taxify, another platform that can help you with sorting your sales tax, e-commerce sales tax. Next slide. So now let's talk about attracting customers. Next slide. There's 4 different methods you can use to attract customers, and for the sake of time, I'm just going to kind of keep this part, each of these surface level, because quite honestly, each of these can be an hour-long webinar themselves. Next slide. So let's get into SEO. So SEO, the best practice for SEO is keep one product per page. You don't want to confuse search engines to try to figure out what's the main topic of the page. The name of the product should be in the website address and also on the title of the page. And you should create a custom meta description for each page or product. Meta description is basically a brief blurb that's shown on Google search engines on a search engine results page. Then you should also use alt attributes, which help describe images to search engines. And I'll get into that a little in the next couple of slides. Next slide. So this is a snippet of a product I Googled, a Nike product I Googled. Notice here on the URL, which is the first line, it has a product name there. It also has a product name in the title, which is the second line, and the blurb below, which is the meta description, has a product there, product name there. If you were to click on it, next slide. If you were to click on that link, it'll take you to this page. Notice how the structure of this page, it has the name of the product and the title. It has the product description, and it also has plenty of images of the product. Now, notice how we can visualize it. We can see the products and we see the design of the website. We see the visuals. We know what it looks like. We obviously, it's a black and white shoe. But Google doesn't see this. Google sees coding. Next slide. This is what Google sees, is this instruction right here. And notice where I circled where it says alt equals and the name of the product. That's our alt attribute. So if you don't have that, Google won't know that it's a shoe, or it's or the specific type of shoe. So it's very important to include that. The good thing about today's platforms, whether it's Shopify or WordPress or whatever platform you use, all you have to do is upload the image on your website, and then when it asks for a description, just go ahead and be as detailed as possible and add that description, and that'll take care of the alt attribute. Next slide. Content creation. So it's not enough these days to just have a e-commerce page and expect people to find your page and create a lot of profit that way. Now, content is king. So it's very important to have content that tells a story about that product or how the best uses of that product. You see a lot of bigger businesses post blogs, publish blogs, videos, webinars, ebooks, and infographics, and emails to kind of tell that story and tell and kind of explain the unique benefits and features of those products. So it's a very good idea to do that. And I know with small businesses, time is of the essence. So, but I do highly recommend doing a couple of things to help, feature your products. Next slide. Next is paid advertising. So there are 4 ways you can implement paid advertising. First is paid search advertising, where it's pretty much a listing on Google or Bing search engine results pages, kind of like what we see here on the screenshot here below with the Pittsburgh plumber. They're display advertising, where they're graphical display ads, banner ads that you find on other websites, and a lot of times also on mobile applications. Retargeting, or another word for it is remarketing, and I can best actually explain it with an example. So let's say, for example, you visit staples.com, you're looking for an office chair. You search for it for a couple of minutes, you close it, and then you go to a completely unrelated website, and you see an advertisement for an office chair from Staples. That's retargeting. It's when you see an ad after viewing a previous website. That's retargeting. Social media paid advertising is when you pay for a boosted post on Facebook, or pay for an online ad on Facebook or LinkedIn and Instagram, things like that, to get more attention. Nowadays with social media, the algorithm favors more paid advertisements than it does just organic regular postings. So there's something to keep in mind. Next slide. So whichever form of paid advertisement that you use, I highly recommend strategizing. Have an idea of who your customer is, what kind of content they consume and how they consume that content, and then create content around that. Typically, advertisements are approved the same day, so there's no waiting period, and it has potential to reach thousands of people, depending on the ad configurations. Next slide. One thing I also want to mention is Google Merchant Center. So Google Merchant Center is a free tool that helps you gain more exposure for your online catalog. You can connect it with different Google programs such as Google Ads and other Google services. Like I said, the program itself is free. You still will get charged for Google Ads the normal way, but it adds a visual element to it, to your ads. Next slide. So this is Google Merchant Center going to work. Notice how it has, again, this is for the Nike product that I kind of covered earlier on. It has the name of the product, it has the price, it has the source of where you can find the product, and it has the reviews underneath. Next slide. With social media, these are the pretty much the most popular platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Pinterest. Also, after when the pandemic hit, TikTok became more popular, Twitch, and other platforms. Definitely, I don't recommend getting on every platform. I just recommend getting on the platform where your customers are. However, I do recommend using Facebook regardless of the business, because Facebook is very SEO friendly. And once you're on social media, make sure to be active, because the last thing you want to do is have an inactive social media account and people are led to believe that you're no longer in business. Next slide. Earlier, we talked a little bit about product pages, and we talked about the importance of having a title, and description, and image. It's also important to have customer reviews enabled on your product pages. Next slide. So customer reviews adds credibility to your product. They allow people who have used your product to give an opinion and actually sell the product on your behalf. Again, this is an example of social proof. And I'm sure a few of you are worried about negative reviews and that may come. I honestly wouldn't worry about it, because one, it's going to happen. The internet's going to have people write something negative, but that's okay, because that gives you an opportunity to address any issues that people may have regarding that product. And it also shows you as a business that you could that your customer-centric values as well. Next slide. And lastly, I'm going to get into fulfillment. So fulfillment is just getting the orders to your customers, and there's different ways you can do that. You can do it on your own, or you can use a third-party logistics company, also known as a 3PL. If you do it on your own, you can charge a live rate shipping where it's cost based on the dimensions and weight of the product, or you use flat rate shipping where it's one flat fee. Free shipping is considered flat rate shipping, or you can also use unlockable free shipping where you encourage the customer to pay a minimum amount so they can get free shipping on their order. With a 3PL, you can definitely use Amazon's fulfillment by Amazon, ShipBob, and also FedEx to help you get orders to your customers. Next slide. And now I'll turn it over to Noreen to talk more about exporting through e-commerce.
Thanks, Jairo. I know we don't have much time left, so I will just quickly go over this section. It's really just to let you know that you can use your website to sell not just domestically, but you can sell overseas as well. And it's just highlighting the importance of global e-commerce. This is certainly a topic that can be expanded on a lot more in depth. But just to cover some points. Okay, global e-commerce is selling your products or services across geopolitical borders from a company's country of origin. Domestic shoppers look beyond borders, and as a business, e-commerce can help you expand your market. So the worldwide average of online shoppers who make purchases from overseas retailers is 57%, and on almost all continents, it's over 50%. This is a graphic of the 10 largest markets for global e-commerce sales in 2019. And as you can see, China and the US dominate. And by 2023, retail e-commerce sales in the Asia Pacific region are projected to be greater than the rest of the world combined. There are a few key success factors to international e-commerce. Going native with your site's language just beyond Google Translate can make or break global sales. A survey of 3,000 online shoppers surveyed from 10 countries found that language was a frontline issue in determining where they shop and whether they buy. So sometimes it's worth it investing into your website to make sure that it's globalized and not just using a Google Translate. Besides your website, it's important to know that search engines are localized. Google has 192 country or region-specific search engines. So this is certainly going to influence the way you organize your SEO. Social media is also localized. This is the map of the most used social media networks in each country. So if you focus all of your efforts on Facebook because it's the biggest in the United States and you think it's the most well-known, you'd be missing out on markets such as Russia and China who use different social networks. Payment preferences is another thing to consider. So companies may default to whatever payment methods that have been working for them domestically. And this chart here shows payment preferences around the world. So it's no surprise that in North America, credit cards are #1 by a mile. Digital payment systems like PayPal and Apple Pay are a close second. And at a global scale, credit cards use those same digital payments as well. But unlike in North America, cash on delivery is the #1 choice in Eastern Europe, India, Africa, and throughout the Middle East. Similarly, enabling direct debit is a must if you target markets in India, Africa, or Asia. Local currency is also important. So most online shoppers prefer to shop and make purchases on sites that price in their own local currency. And 1/3 of online shoppers are likely to abandon a purchase if the pricing is only listed in US dollars. So that's something else to keep in mind. And finally, similar to how social media varies by country or region, so do third-party marketplaces. Amazon is by far the largest in the US and Canada, but that's not true for every country. For example, in Latin America, Mercado Libre is a dominant marketplace, and in China, it's Alibaba. So that concludes our presentation for today, but I just wanted to remind you of our no-cost one-on-one consulting services that we offer at the SBDC, not just in e-commerce, but on really any topic in business. So if you're interested, we encourage you to complete a request for consulting on our website, which is listed here. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Justin for questions.
All right, thanks, guys. That was great. We don't have any questions right now, but I'll give everyone just a moment to submit them. So again, if you have any questions, feel free to use the questions panel in the GoToWebinar panel, and we can address them. Please, I see a hand raised. If you have a question, just put it in the chat because we can't unmute Quick question, is Florida a state of origin for sales tax?
I believe it's not. I believe it's a destination based. I would double check that website that in the presentation. We'll email you the presentation, so you can see that. But I believe it's destination based. Most states are destination based.
Thank you. So there should be a handouts tab. The question is, how do you download the presentation? There's a handouts tab in the GoToWebinar panel, and it should be in there, but we'll also email it to you along with the end of the presentation survey. So if you can't get it now, then you'll get it. You could get it later. So no problem. Question, how does drop shipping apply to international distribution?
That's a good question. You mean as far as if you have a supplier overseas, if they're willing to offer that to you, then it would be a bit more complicated. But as far as customs are concerned and things like that, so they may have a plan in place, but it's definitely going to be a bit more complex than a domestic supplier. But I believe it is an option.
Thank you. Any more questions? All right. Do you have resources of online store website service providers?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, if you the PowerPoint slide where I talk about the online store providers, that would be a good starting list. Shopify, BigCommerce, Magento. I can email you if you like, but I would start with that list first. Those are the more popular ones.
So this is a follow-up to that international distribution question. If they don't have a plan, how do I figure that out?
I would contact the company. If you have a specific supplier in mind overseas, I would contact them and see how they would go about putting a plan together with you that you would be their storefront, and if they would ship directly to the customer. Other things come into play with that as well. If there's free trade agreements between the countries, that could eliminate some barriers. It really depends on which country you're talking about and what the product is as well. So it's a bit complex. Feel free to email us. On the next slide, we have our information, and we can certainly dig deeper into your question and see if we can help you out there.
All right, can you show the next slide?
Any more questions? I think this is a follow-up to the online question that was asked a second ago. Resources who can develop online store website?
Yeah, I can give you some. Yeah, if you shoot me an email, I can email you a few providers that can help you set that up for you.
All right, any more questions? All right, we'll call it in. So thank you guys. Thanks, Jairo and Noreen again. Looks like that's all the questions we have. So again, if anyone has any follow-up questions or would like to schedule a meeting with a consultant, please feel free to visit our site at www.sbdcorlando.com/consulting to schedule an appointment. Again, thank you all for attending. Please be on the lookout for that evaluation survey with the presentation attached, and we hope to see you again soon. Take care.